The new boss deliberately ignored my warnings about the launch until the client stepped in. 7 months of my life sat on my desk in a sleek, unassuming package the size of a wristwatch. I'd poured everything into this health wearable prototype, sacrificed weekends, relationships, and probably a few years off my life from the caffeine alone. My fingers traced the smooth edges one last time before the meeting that would change everything. 2 minutes, Eli. Jen called, poking her head through my office doorway. Everyone's assembling in the Redwood room. I nodded, carefully placing the prototype in its presentation case. How's the mood in there? Jen's usual cheerful expression faltered. Tense. Nobody knows what to expect from this new guy. 3 days ago, our CEO Marcus had cleared out his office with suspicious speed. The official story was that he'd decided to pursue other opportunities, but the whispers around Artemis Tech told a different tale. Board pressure, missed projections, the usual corporate execution. Now we were all gathering to meet his replacement. As lead designer at a company that prided itself on innovation over flash, I'd earned my reputation through meticulous attention to detail and brutal honesty about what technology could and couldn't do. We weren't Silicon Valley's biggest name, but we'd carved out a niche creating products that actually worked instead of just making good demos. This health wearable for Helix Medical Group, a billion-dollar healthcare client, was set to cement that reputation. If we didn't screw it up, I entered the Redwood room last, slipping into an empty chair against the wall. The executive team looked uncomfortable, perched at the conference table like birds on a wire. Our CTO caught my eye and gave a barely perceptible shrug. Nobody knew what was coming. The door swung open with unnecessary force and he appeared. Bryce Collier didn't just enter the room, he claimed it. Designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, carefully disheveled hair, and a smile that belonged in a luxury watch advertisement. He moved with the relaxed confidence of someone who'd never encountered a problem money couldn't solve. "Good morning, Artemis." His voice filled the space before he'd fully crossed the threshold. "Bryce Collier here. Thrilled to be taking the wheel of this incredible innovation machine." He made his way around the table, introducing himself personally to each executive with firm handshakes and practiced eye contact. I noticed he spent considerably more time with marketing and sales than with engineering or design. When he finally reached the section where the project lead sat, his energy noticeably dampened. "And you are?" he asked, barely glancing at the prototype case I'd placed on the table. L.A. Parker, lead designer on the Helix wearable project. His handshake was perfunctory, his eyes already moving to the next person. "Right, the medical bracelet thing. Looking forward to seeing what you've got. Actually, I brought the latest prototype. We're in the final testing phase now, and—" Great, he interrupted, already moving on. "We'll circle back to that," but we never did. After the introductions, Bryce launched into his vision for Artemis, heavy on market disruption and aggressive growth, light on the technological excellence that had been our hallmark. Then, almost as an afterthought, he dropped a bomb. "I've reviewed our product pipeline, and we're accelerating the Helix wearable launch. We'll debut at TechVision Expo in 3 weeks." The silence that followed was deafening. I glanced at our CTO, who looked as blindsided as I felt. Finally, I cleared my "Mr. Collier, with all respect, we're still completing critical stability testing. The biometric algorithms are validated, but we need at least 6 more weeks of stress testing to ensure—" "6 weeks?" Bryce laughed, and the sound grated against my ears. It was the performative laugh of someone who wanted others to join in at someone else's expense. "L.A. right. Look, I appreciate caution, but this industry rewards bold moves. Helix is expecting results, and I've already promised them something spectacular." "It's not about caution," I insisted, feeling a flush creep up my neck. "It's about functionality. The power management system still has issues under sustained use that could lead to—" "You know what I've noticed in tech?" Bryce interrupted again, addressing the room rather than me. "Engineers always think something's not ready. If we waited for perfection, we'd never ship anything." He flashed that toothpaste commercial smile. "Sometimes you have to move fast and break things. This is a health monitoring device," I said, fighting to keep my voice level. "If it breaks during use—" "L.A.," he cut in, his smile hardening at the edges. "You're coming across as excessively negative here. First impressions matter." He turned to the broader room. Tech Vision Expo. 3 weeks from today, we're going to dazzle Helix and the entire healthcare tech sector. As the meeting dissolved into planning discussions, I made one last attempt, intercepting Bryce before he could leave. Mr. Collier, please just review the testing data. We've documented specific failure modes that need addressing before. He placed a hand on my shoulder, squeezing just firmly enough to be uncomfortable. Parker, he said, dropping his voice, I understand you feel protective of your project, but I've brought dozens of products to market. Trust me when I say a little technical debt never finished anyone. Something in his eyes shifted, then a flash of calculation that sent a chill through me. And between us, he continued, the board is watching this launch very closely. As is my performance. As is everyone's. The threat was velvet-wrapped, but unmistakable. So maybe channel that obvious passion into making this work instead of listing reasons it won't. For everyone's sake. He released my shoulder and walked away, leaving me standing there with the prototype and a sinking certainty that I just glimpsed something dangerous beneath the polished veneer. That evening, I stayed late, running the prototype through another stress test. For 3 hours, it performed flawlessly. Heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen levels, all measured with medical-grade precision. In the 4th hour, the readings began to fluctuate. By hour 5, the device had overheated and shut down completely. I documented everything, prepared a detailed report, and emailed it to Bryce with urgent critical prototype issues in the subject line. The email sat unread for 3 days. And then things got worse. My first clue that something was seriously wrong came when my calendar notification chimed for the weekly Helix project status meeting, and the location had changed to a conference room I'd never heard of. I arrived 5 minutes early, to find the door locked, voices murmuring inside. Excuse me, Eli. The voice behind me belonged to Trent Reynolds, a man I'd never seen before. Crisp suit, expensive haircut, and an ID badge still warm from the printer. Were you looking for the Helix meeting? Yes, I'm the lead designer on. Great to meet you. I'm Trent, new project manager for the launch. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Bryce brought me in to streamline things. He swiped his badge, opening the door to reveal Bryce, marketing, sales, and a few junior designers from my team, but no other senior engineers. Parker, just the man we need, Bryce called out with manufactured enthusiasm. We were just finalizing the presentation deck for Tech Vision. Trent here has some fantastic ideas for showcasing the wearable. I slipped into an empty chair, noticing how conversation died when I entered. I wasn't aware we'd brought on a new project manager. Just made it official this morning. Bryce replied smoothly. Trent and I worked magic together at my last company. He's a launch specialist. Trent clicked to a slide showing our prototype with splashy graphics and bullet points promising features we hadn't even started developing. We're positioning this as a total health revolution, continuous monitoring with predictive AI that alerts users to potential medical issues before symptoms appear. That's actually the Phase 2 implementation, I said carefully. The current prototype only has basic monitoring capabilities and details. Details. Bryce waved dismissively. The point is where we're headed, not the stepping stones. But we can't demonstrate or promise features that don't exist yet. The prototype physically doesn't have. Ella. Bryce cut in, his tone deceptively light. Maybe take notes today instead of raising objections to every slide. Some positivity would be refreshing. The meeting continued with my objections ignored and my expertise dismissed. I watched in growing horror as they planned a showcase that the prototype couldn't possibly deliver. Afterward, I cornered Jen in the hallway. What the hell is happening? When did Bryce hire this Trent guy? She glanced around nervously. 3 days ago, and that's not all. Half the engineers got reassigned to other projects. Marcus would never have. She stopped abruptly as Trent rounded the corner. Ella, glad I caught you. We need to revisit your slide about system limitations. Bryce thinks it's too technical for the audience. It's critical information about how the device should be used. Sure. Just needs reframing as usage guidelines instead of limitations. Marketing 101. He clapped my shoulder. Email me the revised content by tomorrow. As the days passed, my influence over my own project evaporated. Engineering concerns were rebranded as negative thinking. My access to presentation materials disappeared. Emails about technical issues went unanswered. Late one evening, passing the executive conference room, I heard Bryce's unmistakable voice. The board is already impressed with our accelerated timeline. Once we wow Helix at TechVision, the acquisition offers will start rolling in. I froze mid-step. What about the technical issues Parker keeps raising? It was Trent's voice. Non-issue, we'll push a software update after launch that fixes whatever minor bugs are left. Standard practice. And if he makes waves at the demo? A pause. He won't. I've made sure his position is precarious. Either he plays ball or he's first on the chopping block when we restructure post-launch. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. Bryce wasn't just rushing the launch for glory, he was positioning our company for acquisition, using my prototype as bait regardless of whether it actually worked. In desperation, I spent the next night documenting everything. I created a comprehensive report detailing each technical issue, its potential impact, and the solutions we'd planned before Bryce's arrival. I included performance logs showing the overheating problem, the sensor degradation during extended use, and the full system crashes after hour 5. I sent this report to Bryce, our entire executive team, and directly to Dr. Miriam Shaw, the Chief Innovation Officer at Helix, who was scheduled to demonstrate the prototype at TechVision. The next morning, my company ID badge wouldn't open the lab door. Security escorted me to HR, where a nervous representative explained that my access had been temporarily adjusted for proprietary reasons ahead of the launch. I could still work from my office, but access to prototypes and testing equipment was restricted to maintain launch security. When I returned to my desk, I found the final presentation deck in my inbox. My name appeared only in tiny print on the acknowledgments slide. A new slide titled Bryce's Vision, Revolutionizing Healthcare Monitoring, had replaced my technical specifications. And every email I'd sent the night before had bounced back with server errors. 4 days before launch, I made one last attempt, printing my report and physically placing it on Bryce's chair before his morning meeting. By afternoon it had disappeared, and Trent informed me my presence at the TechVision demo would be optional. Actually, I replied with forced calm, I'll definitely be there. His smile tightened. Of course, just remember we're all on the same team here. But as I walked away, I knew the truth. I wasn't on their team. I was their scapegoat in waiting. TechVision Expo transformed the San Francisco Convention Center into a gleaming temple of innovation. Companies from around the world showcased their latest breakthroughs beneath spotlights and pulsing electronic music. The Artemis Tech booth stood out even in this setting, a sleek black and silver structure with dramatically lit pedestals displaying empty wearable bands. The actual functioning prototype wouldn't appear until the main presentation. I slipped into the auditorium, 30 minutes early, choosing a seat near the back with clear sightlines to the stage. The space filled quickly with tech journalists, industry analysts, and competitors, all eager to see what Artemis had produced for Helix Medical Group. 3 rows ahead, I spotted Dr. Miriam Shaw. Even from behind, her posture radiated authority. Spine straight, head high, hands folded precisely on her tablet. As Chief Innovation Officer at Helix, she had the power to make or break our partnership with a single word. I wondered if she'd seen my report, or if Bryce had somehow intercepted that too. The lights dimmed. A video began playing on the massive screen, showing people of diverse ages and backgrounds, living active lives while dramatic text promised a healthcare revolution and predictive wellness technology. The video ended with our prototype materializing from particles of light, accompanied by the slogan, "The future of health is here." The audience applauded as Bryce strode onto the stage, wearing a black turtleneck that made him look like a tech prophet. "Good afternoon, visionaries and changemakers," he began, voice perfectly modulated for inspiration. "Today, Artemis Tech isn't just launching a product, we're fundamentally changing the relationship between humans and healthcare." I gripped my armrests as Bryce delivered promises that made my stomach tighten. According to him, our wearable could predict heart attacks 24 hours in advance, detect early signs of stroke, continuously monitor blood glucose without invasive sensors, and operate for a week on a single charge. None of these features were fully functional in the prototype. Some weren't even in development yet. But don't take my word for it, Bryce continued, building to his climax. I'd like to invite Dr. Miriam Shaw, Chief Innovation Officer at Helix Medical Group, to experience this breakthrough technology firsthand. Dr. Shaw ascended the steps with measured grace. Up close, she was even more intimidating. Tall, with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a precise bun, and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything with scientific detachment. She'd earned her reputation as both a brilliant physician and a ruthless evaluator of medical technology. "Thank you for joining us, Dr. Shaw," Bryce said, guiding her to center stage. "May I?" He held up our prototype, my creation, my sleepless nights, as if it were his personal achievement. Dr. Shaw extended her wrist and Bryce secured the band with theatrical precision. "The device instantly begins analyzing vital signs," he explained to the audience as a large screen displayed the companion app's interface. Numbers appeared, showing heart rate, blood pressure, and oxygen saturation. For the first 3 minutes, everything worked exactly as designed. The prototype synchronized with the display, showing Dr. Shaw's steady vitals. The audience murmured appreciatively as Bryce walked through the basic monitoring features. I allowed myself a moment of pride seeing my work function perfectly, followed by dread knowing what would happen next if the device behaved as it had in every stress test. "Now," Bryce continued, "this isn't just passive monitoring. Our advanced AI can assess physical responses under exertion." He turned to Dr. Shaw. "Would you mind demonstrating with some basic movement? Perhaps a few knee raises?" Dr. Shaw raised an eyebrow but complied, performing several knee raises while maintaining perfect composure. The display showed her heart rate increasing appropriately. The device was handling the initial exertion just fine. "Excellent," Bryce beamed. "And to demonstrate its comprehensive monitoring, perhaps a few jumping jacks." This wasn't in the agreed script. I sat forward, pulse pounding. Extended movement generated heat. Heat was precisely what triggered the power management failures. Dr. Shaw gave Bryce a measured look before performing 6 precise jumping jacks. The audience watched the numbers on screen tick upward naturally. "Perfect," Bryce exclaimed. "As you can see, the device maintains medical-grade accuracy even during..." It happened exactly at the 4-minute mark, exactly as my test logs had documented. The heart rate display jumped from 90. Blood pressure readings spiked to dangerous levels. Oxygen saturation plummeted to just a momentary calibration, Bryce said, his smile becoming fixed as the numbers continued their impossible dance. Dr. Shaw glanced at the display, then at the device on her wrist. With clinical precision, she pressed 2 fingers against her carotid artery, counting her actual pulse while watching the wildly incorrect numbers. "This reading is inaccurate," she stated plainly, her voice carrying through the now silent auditorium. Before Bryce could respond, the display went completely blank. A moment later, Dr. Shaw calmly removed the wristband. "The device is overheating significantly," she announced, holding it away from her body. From my seat, I could see the panic flash across Bryce's face before his media training reasserted itself. "Well, folks," he said, with a forced laugh. "As we say in tech development, it's not a bug, it's an opportunity for improvement." The sound of notebooks closing and camera shutters clicking filled the silence. Nobody laughed. "We're pushing boundaries here," Bryce continued desperately. "Sometimes even the most revolutionary technology needs a few refinements before..." "The device has completely powered down," Dr. Shaw interrupted, examining the now dark wristband. Her eyes lifted, scanning the audience until they found me. The look wasn't angry. It was worse. It was the look of someone who had just discovered they'd been deliberately misled. As murmurs spread through the crowd, I saw journalists typing furiously on their phones. The hashtag Nina Artemis failure would be trending within minutes. Bryce was still talking, still spinning, but nobody was listening anymore. The damage was done. The prototype had failed exactly as I'd predicted, in front of the most important audience possible. As people began standing to leave, Dr. Shaw's assistant approached her with a tablet. She examined whatever was on the screen, then looked directly at me again. This time she nodded slightly and mouthed 2 words that sent a chill through me. "See." I made my way backstage through the chaos of Bryce's damage control operation. PR staff huddled in tight circles while marketing executives whispered urgently into phones. Nobody noticed as I slipped past them toward the private meeting rooms. A security guard with a Helix ID badge stood outside room 107. He checked my credentials with military precision before stepping aside. "She's expecting you." Inside, Dr. Shaw stood by the window, still holding our prototype. The device now appeared small and ordinary in her hands, not the revolutionary technology Bryce had proclaimed, just a flawed gadget that had embarrassed everyone involved. Dr. Shaw, L.A. Parker, lead designer. She turned, fixing those clinical eyes on me. I know exactly who you are. About what happened out there. Sit down, Mr. Parker. Her tone left no room for negotiation. I took the chair across from her as she placed the prototype carefully on the table between us. She didn't speak immediately, instead studying me with the same analytical focus she'd given the failed device. Are you aware, she finally said, that your career could end today? My throat went dry. Yes. Good. Self-awareness is rare in this industry. She tapped something on her tablet, then turned it toward me. Do you recognize this? On the screen was my comprehensive warning report, the one I'd emailed to Bryce, the executive team, and Helix. That's my report documenting the prototype's stability issues, I said, confusion replacing fear. I sent it to you and your engineering team last week, but never received a response. I never received it. Her voice had an edge like a scalpel. Neither did anyone at Helix. But I sent it directly to you, to an email address one character off from mine. She interrupted, zooming in on the recipient field. Where I had typed mshaw@helixmedical.com, the email showed mshaw@helixmedical.com, a nearly imperceptible difference. That's not possible, I whispered. I triple-checked all addresses. And yet, she swiped to another screen, a technical analysis from Helix's IT security. The email headers show the message was rerouted before leaving Artemis servers. Someone with administrative access intercepted your warning and altered the external addresses. The realization hit like a physical blow. Bryce, or someone acting on his orders. Dr. Shaw's expression remained neutral, but her eyes had softened slightly. This report predicts with remarkable precision every failure that occurred on stage today. The timing, the pattern, even the specific sensor malfunctions. Because I've run the stress tests dozens of times, I said, anger replacing shock. I documented everything. The device works perfectly for 3 to 4 minutes of active use before the power management system overheats. And you had solutions identified? Yes. We need to modify the thermal distribution layer and optimize the power management algorithms. My team had already designed the fixes, but implementation and testing would take another 6 weeks. I leaned forward. Dr. Shaw, I swear to you we weren't trying to deceive Helix. Bryce accelerated the timeline against all technical advice. She was silent for a long moment. I received an interesting call this morning, she finally said, from Marcus Delaney. Our former CEO? I blinked in surprise. Yes, he contacted me after hearing about today's demonstration. He seemed concerned that his departure might have affected project quality. She tilted her head slightly. He mentioned that your prototype passed every quality milestone under his leadership. It did. We were on schedule for a properly tested launch in 2 months. Yet 3 weeks ago, everything changed. She wasn't asking a question. When Bryce took over, yes. Why? The directness of her question caught me off guard. I'm not sure. Mr. Parker, she interrupted. I have 20 minutes before I need to call Helix's CEO to explain why we just witnessed a public demonstration of a defective medical device carrying our partnership. I don't have time for corporate diplomacy. Why did Bryce Collier rush an unfinished prototype to market? The last threads of professional caution snapped. Acquisition, I said flatly. He's positioning Artemis for a buyout. I overheard him telling Trent that after impressing the board with an accelerated timeline and wowing Helix at TechVision, the acquisition offers would start coming in. Something flashed in her eyes, not surprise, but confirmation. And your role in this? Expendable. He systematically isolated me from the project, restricted my access to testing equipment, and intercepted my warnings. If you hadn't experienced the failure firsthand today, I'd be taking the fall tomorrow. Dr. Shaw nodded once. Decision made. She reached into her briefcase and extracted a sealed folder. Helix doesn't partner with companies that prioritize optics over functionality, especially in medical technology. She placed the folder on the table. This contains our standard contract termination documents. My heart sank. 2 years of work, destroyed by 3 weeks of Bryce's leadership, However, she continued, we also don't abandon promising technology because of management failures. She produced a second, thicker folder. This is a request for project recovery documentation. I need everything: original specifications, test logs, current status, and your implementation plan for those fixes you mentioned. You're not terminating the partnership. That depends entirely on what happens in the next 24 hours. She stood, gathering her belongings. I have a board meeting with your executive team tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I expect you'll be there? I wasn't invited. You are now. She handed me a Helix visitor badge. Conference room A. Executive floor. Bring your complete documentation. She paused at the door. Mr. Parker? In my experience, the truth has weight. It sinks through corporate layers eventually, no matter how many people try to hold it underwater. Her expression hardened. Tomorrow we're going to let it surface. As she left, I stared at the visitor badge in my hand, a simple plastic rectangle that somehow felt like the most valuable object I'd ever held. It was proof that someone was finally going to listen. I arrived at Artemis headquarters at 7:30 a.m., clutching a weathered laptop bag containing every document, test log, and technical specification I'd meticulously maintained throughout the project. Security seemed confused by my Helix visitor badge, but waved me through after a brief call upstairs. The executive floor felt like foreign territory. All glass, polished wood, and hushed conversations. I found conference room A and settled in to organize my materials. For the next hour, I arranged evidence in clear chronological order: original project specifications, successful early test results, the first appearance of heat management issues, proposed solutions, and finally, Bryce's compressed timeline alongside the failures it had caused. At 8:50 a.m., executives began filtering in. Our CFO, Janet Brooks, did a double take when she spotted me. Parker, what are you doing here? Before I could answer, our CTO Martin Chen entered, nodding slightly in my direction. He'd been mysteriously absent since Bryce's arrival, a coincidence that suddenly seemed suspicious. At 8:58, Bryce strode in with Trent trailing behind. He froze mid-step when he saw me. Parker, he recovered quickly, voice dropping to a threatening whisper. This is an executive meeting. Whatever you think you're doing, Mr. Parker is here at my request. Dr. Shaw entered with perfect timing, followed by two Helix executives and their legal counsel. As the technical lead on our partnership, his presence is essential. Bryce's smile appeared instantly, though his eyes remained cold. Of course, I just meant we don't usually involve project leads until after executive decisions are made, Dr. Shaw finished for him. That approach has proven problematic. The board chairman arrived last, calling the meeting to order with a grim expression. In light of yesterday's incident, Dr. Shaw has requested this emergency session to discuss the future of our partnership. Before we begin, Bryce interjected smoothly, I want to personally apologize for the demonstration issues. Tech development involves setbacks, but I take full responsibility and assure you we already have engineers working around the clock to resolve. Mr. Collier, Dr. Shaw interrupted. Let's dispense with the prepared statements. She placed a folder on the table. I've distributed copies of Mr. Parker's original warning report, which detailed every problem that occurred yesterday. Warnings that were deliberately intercepted and hidden from Helix. The room went silent as the executives flipped through the documents. These technical issues weren't surprises, she continued. They were known problems with identified solutions that required additional development time. Time that was denied by Mr. Collier despite explicit warnings from the technical team. All eyes turned to Bryce, whose composed facade began showing cracks. Development always involves pushing boundaries, he countered. Parker has been resistant to timeline optimization from day one. His excessive caution would have us testing forever without ever launching. I opened my mouth to object, but Dr. Shaw raised a hand, silencing me. Mr. Chen, she addressed our CTO directly. You've been unusually quiet since Mr. Collier's appointment. As Chief Technology Officer, what's your assessment of the prototype's readiness for public demonstration? Martin straightened. The prototype wasn't ready. Ely's team identified clear stability issues that required another development cycle. I raised these concerns and was subsequently excluded from launch decisions. That's absurd, Bryce scoffed. You were copied on every. I have the email logs, Martin interrupted quietly. After I objected to the accelerated timeline, I was removed from 83% of project communications. The board chairman leaned forward. Is this true, Bryce? We streamlined communications for efficiency, Bryce replied, his trademark confidence wavering. Look, every product launch involves calculated risks. Sometimes you have to deliberately alter email addresses to prevent warnings from reaching clients. Dr. Shaw slid another document forward, the IT security analysis, showing the modified email headers. For the first time, Bryce appeared genuinely rattled. I don't know anything about email headers. There must be some technical explanation. There is, I said, finding my voice. Someone with administrative access intercepted my emails and changed external addresses by one character, just enough to prevent delivery while making it appear they'd been sent. Trent shifted uncomfortably beside Bryce. Furthermore, Dr. Shaw continued relentlessly, I've spoken with 3 former employees from Mr. Collier's previous company. All described identical tactics, accelerated timelines, sideline technical experts, rushed demonstrations of unfinished products, all to position the company for acquisition regardless of product readiness. The revelation hit the room like a thunderclap. Our board chairman's expression darkened as he turned to Bryce. Is that what this is about? You're positioning us for acquisition? That's a ridiculous accusation, Bryce stammered. I'm focused on Artemis's growth, not. 2 venture capital firms have approached me since yesterday's demonstration. Dr. Shaw interrupted. Both mentioned they'd had preliminary discussions with you about Artemis's valuation post-successful Helix partnership. The room erupted. The board chairman called for order, while the CFO demanded answers. Through the chaos, I watched Bryce's carefully constructed persona crumble in real time. Mr. Parker, Dr. Shaw turned to me amid the tumult. Your original timeline suggested the prototype would be fully functional within 6 additional weeks of development. Is that still accurate? Yes, I confirmed. The solutions are designed and ready for implementation. With proper resources, we can deliver a stable version in that time frame. She nodded once. Then Helix is prepared to continue our partnership under 2 non-negotiable conditions. She looked directly at the board chairman. First, Mr. Collier's immediate removal from any involvement with our project. Second, restoration of the original technical leadership and timeline. The chairman didn't hesitate. Agreed. Bryce stood abruptly. This is outrageous. You can't possibly. Mr. Collier, the chairman cut him off. Please wait in my office. We'll discuss your future with Artemis privately. As Bryce was escorted out, his face contorted with a final venomous glare in my direction. Trent silently followed, careful to avoid eye contact with anyone. The meeting continued for another hour as we outlined recovery plans. Throughout, Dr. Shaw repeatedly deferred to my technical assessments, rebuilding my credibility with each acknowledgement. When we finally adjourned, Martin approached me. I owe you an apology, Eli. I should have fought harder. I shook my head. We both got steamrolled. Not anymore, he replied. The board's called an emergency session for this afternoon. Bryce won't survive it. He was right. By evening, Bryce Collier had been escorted from the building for the last time. Personal items in a cardboard box, the universal symbol of corporate disgrace. The 6 weeks following Bryce's spectacular downfall were the most intense of my professional life. With Martin's full support, I reassembled my engineering team and implemented the solutions we'd developed before the ill-fated demonstration. We worked around the clock, fueled by a potent mixture of vindication and determination to prove that our technology truly was revolutionary, just not in the way Bryce had falsely promised. The company transformed in Bryce's absence. Trent disappeared the same day, while other executives who had aligned with Bryce found themselves marginalized in the new order. The board appointed Martin as interim CEO, and his first official act was to issue a company-wide apology for the leadership failures that had led to the TechVision fiasco. I kept my head down, focused solely on fixing the prototype. We solved the heat management issue by redesigning the thermal distribution layer. We optimized power consumption algorithms to extend battery life without sacrificing monitoring accuracy. We refined the sensor array to maintain stability during extended use. Every Friday, Dr. Shaw visited to review our progress. Her standards were exacting but fair, her questions precise and technically sophisticated. I came to realize she understood our technology far better than she had initially let on. During her 5th visit, as we reviewed the latest test results showing perfect stability during a 72-hour continuous operation test, she asked an unexpected question. "Are you happy here, Eli?" The question caught me off guard. I'm satisfied with our progress. The prototype is finally living up to its potential. That's not what I asked. She set down her tablet, giving me her full attention. Artemis has treated you abominably. They allowed you to be sidelined, ignored your expertise, and would have let you take the fall for Bryce's failures. Now that the crisis has passed, they're happy to return to business, as usual with you back in your box. Her assessment stung because it contained unmistakable truth. Despite Martin's leadership and our technical recovery, the company culture remained fundamentally unchanged. I was appreciated for the moment, but institutional memory was short. "What are you suggesting?" I asked carefully. "I'm leaving Helix," she replied, watching my reaction. "Not immediately, but soon. I've secured funding to establish Horizon Medical Innovations, a technology incubator focused on medical devices that prioritize patient outcomes over quarterly earnings." She slid a business card across the table. Simple, elegant, with just her name and founder Horizon Medical. "I need a technical partner," she continued. "Someone who understands both the engineering challenges and the ethical imperative of getting medical technology right. Someone who won't compromise safety for speed." The offer hung in the air between us. "You want me to leave Artemis? I want you to consider what you could create in an environment built around your values rather than despite them." She stood to leave. "Take 2 weeks, visit our facility, meet the team I'm assembling. Then decide." The next day, Martin called me to his office. His expression was uncharacteristically nervous. "The board met yesterday," he began. "They've approved a significant restructuring of our technical leadership." He pushed a document across his desk, a formal offer for the newly created position of Chief Innovation Officer, reporting directly to him with a substantial salary increase and equity package. "We should have listened to you from the beginning, Eli. This is our attempt to make sure we never make that mistake again." I stared at the offer, remembering Dr. Shaw's words. Was this genuine appreciation, or just an attempt to retain the architect of their most valuable prototype? "I'll need time to consider it," I said finally. "Of course," Martin nodded. "But, Eli, Miriam Shaw approached you, didn't she?" I kept my expression neutral. "Why would you think that?" "Because she's brilliant, and so are you." He sighed. "Just don't make any decisions without talking to me first. Okay?" That weekend, I visited Horizon's developing headquarters, a renovated industrial space filled with natural light and cutting-edge lab equipment. The small team Shaw had assembled included top engineers and medical researchers, all drawn by her vision of technology that truly served patient needs. As I toured the facility, something unexpected happened. For the first time in months, I felt excited, not just about technology but about possibilities unbound by corporate constraints. My decision crystallized the following Thursday. I was working late when a notification appeared on my screen. A press release draft circulating among executives. The headline read, "Artemis Tech announces revolutionary health wearable developed under new leadership." The document mentioned Martin prominently, along with several board members. My name appeared once, buried in paragraph 6. Some things never changed. The next morning I submitted my resignation. Martin's counteroffers grew increasingly desperate, culminating in a personal plea from the board chairman. I remained polite but firm, explaining that my decision wasn't about money or title, but about alignment of values. On my final day, I cleared out my office under the watchful eyes of security, standard procedure for departing employees with technical knowledge. As I packed 7 years of professional life into cardboard boxes, Jen appeared in the doorway. "Is it true? You're going to work with Dr. Shaw?" I nodded. "New company, new start." "They're idiots for letting you go?" she said fiercely. "We all know the prototype was yours. And now it's theirs." I smiled, lifting the last box. "But the next one will be mine." 1 month later, Horizon Medical Innovations announced its first development partnership, a next-generation wearable health monitor for early intervention in cardiovascular disease. The press release prominently featured Dr. Miriam Shaw and technical director Eli Parker. That same week, industry news reported that Bryce Collier had been rejected for executive positions at 4 major tech companies, with sources citing irreconcilable concerns about professional ethics. As I stood in Horizon's lab, watching our new prototype take shape beneath skilled hands guided by honest purpose, I realized something profound. Bryce had gotten one thing right. Sometimes you do have to break things to move forward. He just never understood that what needed breaking wasn't the technology, but the system that valued appearance over substance, speed over safety, and flash over function. Some revolutions aren't announced on stages with dramatic lighting and rehearsed speeches. The real ones happen quietly, in labs and meeting rooms. One principled decision at a time.